Welcome to this evening's presentation of Rochester Community Power. In case you are new to Zoom, which after this whole pandemic seems unlikely, but if you are, please use speaker view to see the program full screen. Your microphone and camera will be off during the presentation, but if you want to ask a question, please use the Q&A feature. It's technically not the chat feature, but just hover the cursor, usually at the top or bottom of your screen, should pull up a menu and you'll see Q&A. Click that, you should be able to type your question in. I will answer questions at the end that seem applicable to everyone. My colleagues at Electricity will try to answer some of the questions as we go. And again, if you need ASL services, please pin the interpreter and position appropriately. And with those details taken care of, let's begin. So again, welcome to this presentation on clean energy choices, specifically about the Rochester Community Power Program. And this is a partnership between the City of Rochester, who has the municipal authority to implement this program, the CCA administrator that they selected, Jewel Community Power, is an approved administrator by New York State specifically for community choice aggregation programs. Rochester, of which I'm a member, is a subcontractor for Jewel Community Power. We're the local program manager. If you have questions or concerns, if we can help you in some way, we're the folks that you can reach out to. We have offices right here in Rochester on South Avenue, and we're available. We'll give you the contact number and information later on. But we're available Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Can schedule other things if that becomes necessary, but here to help you. Okay, so my name is Sue Hughes Smith, and I'm one of the partners at Electricity, as are Margie Pete, Ben Freevert, and Melissa Carlson. We also have 2 additional new members, Shannon Bellamy and Sienna Prieto. And you might get a hold of any one of us should you come to the office or give us a call or email us. Okay, so the City of Rochester, after many years of study and consideration and moving through the required legal and regulatory steps, is launching the Community Choice Aggregation Program known as Rochester Community Power. We are the largest city in New York State to implement this type of program, which is really exciting. And for the default electricity choice, the City of Rochester has selected a 100% New York State renewable electricity supply offering. And the program officially launches in September of 2021. So those folks who want to participate will begin to be enrolled into the program in September. And again, this is a program for the biggest one of its kind in New York State. And if you as an individual were trying to find a renewable electricity product, this is a very good deal. It is below what you could find as an individual and is guaranteed to be supporting New York State facilities, which is something as an individual you're not really able to accomplish. So congratulations to the City of Rochester for making it this far through the program, and to all the staff and elected officials who have made this program possible. So you have received an opt-out letter if you are eligible to participate in the program. So bear in mind that some 60,000 letters have gone out in the mail. We know that this is an effective way to reach people and notify people of the program. We know that because we've had lot of phone calls and emails. The news has been reaching out. So we're very pleased to see that this letter is having an impact in the community. So the city of Rochester was listed on this letter, and this letter gave the details of the program, obviously information about the Zoom meeting, and ways to not participate if that's your choice. Again, this is one choice that your city is offering to you, and one that you cannot access as an individual. So this evening, I'll review briefly what community choice aggregation is, the benefits of CCA, the specific contract price details, your eligibility requirements. We'll take a look at an RGE bill briefly, so you know what changes you would expect to see and what the next steps are. And hopefully I'm going to tell my Rochester team right now, if I forget to mention the next steps, the role of RGE, somebody please chime in. Okay. So community choice aggregation is an energy purchase program, and it's authorized by the New York State Public Service Commission. And in New York State's case, it was authorized in April of 2016. We're not the first state with a CCA program. We're 6th or 7th, I believe, states to authorize it, but do be aware that rules vary from state to state. So the Public Service Commission looked at what had happened in other states. They had a pilot program in Westchester County, and they created rules and authorized our state program in 2016. So what does it do? It allows municipalities to aggregate energy demand and negotiate a bulk purchase. For this reason, the Public Service Commission has structured the program as an opt-out program. Explain that in a second in more detail, but think of it this way. If you want to negotiate a bulk purchase, you have to have a bulk of participants. So everyone is in unless they choose not to participate. The energy companies can look across the state and see that 60 to 80% of people choose to use these programs, and they then make their best bid for that business in a competitive process. And that then allows us to command a better price than an individual could access by themselves. Okay, so that's why the Public Service Commission structures CCAs as an opt-out program. And all it has done is shift the selection of the default supplier or the default purchaser of electricity from the state telling the utility to make that transaction to your municipality selecting the particular product that they think best meets the goals of their community. So it creates local control. All eligible customers may participate, and most of the folks who are automatically opted in are residents and small businesses. But again, you have the choice if you actually want to be enrolled and continue in this program, guys, but you will be considered that you want to participate unless you take an action. That's opt-out. Very large energy users like the University of Rochester or some other very large business, they might want to opt in, but based on their service classification, being a large energy user, they probably already get a good deal on energy. So community choice aggregation is really an attempt by the Public Service Commission to provide residents and small businesses with opportunities that are already available to very large energy users. The benefits of CCA. We're using a bulk buying strategy through aggregation to get the best price available in the market for the product that we are seeking. It's a competitive process, and the community has chosen to make this program a fixed price program. So the fixed rate for the electricity eliminates some volatility. We all know that our energy bills depend upon how much energy we use and the price we have to pay for that energy. So this doesn't eliminate all price volatility or all, bill volatility, but it eliminates one component of that volatility, the price for the electrons themselves. The market goes up and down really every day, multiple times a day, monthly. So when RG&E is the default purchaser, each month you have to pay a different price per kilowatt hour for the electricity. Okay, so the market's going up and down. The CCA rate will be a fixed price per kilowatt hour for the next 24 months. These programs enable the municipality to make the selection for the default program, and we hope will accelerate the transition to renewable energy. Because of course, when you increase the demand for a product like renewable electricity, over time, the market responds to that increased demand and will increase the availability of that product. In particular, the city of Rochester has committed to addressing climate change and passed a climate action plan in May of 2017. You can find that on the city's website. And if you read that plan, you'll discover that community choice aggregation is one strategy that the city has been exploring as a way to make good on its commitments to reduce greenhouse gases. Again, Rochester showing leadership across the state and across the country. So the city of Rochester's contract pricing details. Again, there was a competitive process and several companies responded to the bid for a 24-month fixed rate, no fee to join, no fee to exit, for 100% New York State renewable purchasing. And the winning bid was for 5.8 cents per kilowatt hour if you're a resident, slightly higher for a small business of 5.877 cents per kilowatt hour, shown here as dollar values on the slide. Okay, I want to note for you that this price, at the time we went to bid, this price was 15% lower than what you could find in the open market as an individual. So if you've never used the Power to Choose website on the Department of Public Service, I suggest exploring that, and you need to, it's a little complicated. You need to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. So 24 months, fixed rate, 100% renewable product. Okay, so will community choice aggregation affect you? Well, customers are enrolled on an opt-out basis. So you will have received a letter if you are eligible to participate in this program. So some folks have called us and said, hey, my neighbor's gotten a letter, but I haven't gotten a letter. And what we review for them is, well, there could be a reason you didn't get a letter. See if any of these descriptions are true for you. Have you already contracted with a third-party supplier or ESCO? Is there some other company's name in your utility bill? Sometimes people don't realize that they already are in an ESCO product. Secondly, customers that are very large energy users that have a different type of meter called a demand meter, they are not automatically included. If you've ever put a freeze or a block on your account, I know sometimes we've all received too many solicitations for our business. And so some people have put a block on your account. You will not automatically be in this program as a result of that action. And then finally, if you've received home energy assistance funds in the past year, or some other utility assistance program, not due to the CCA program itself, but due to other regulatory requirements, HEAP recipients are not eligible for this CCA program, which is unfortunate, but we hope to use CCA as a tool to develop some other opportunities for HEAP recipients in the near future. Okay, so if those categories are true for you, you would not have received that letter. Everyone else will be automatically enrolled unless you take an action to exit the program by the end of this month, by July 29th, I believe. You can always leave the program at no charge, but if you never want to enter the program, we just need to hear from you before this official opt-out period ends. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So your RG&E electricity bill. First of all, if you have thrown away your opt-out card and 3 months from now or 4 months from now, you decide, I really don't want to participate, or maybe you did opt out and now you want to get back in, we can help you with that too. You are going to want to have your RG&E bill handy if possible. It makes it easier for us to locate your information. And you'll see on page 3, there is this number that most of us don't ever notice called the POD ID. And this is associated with your meter. And if you have that available, it's easier for us to help you in the future, okay? If you've got the letter and the opt-out card, that's the preferred way to communicate with us this month. So your RG&E bill, if the RG&E is purchasing on your behalf, looks somewhat like this. You've got the electricity delivery charges, followed by the electricity supply charges, followed by taxes and surcharges. So this is important. I'm sure we all want RG&E to continue to read our meters, send us our bills, take care of the lines, any outage that occurs. That's all RG&E's job, and they're going to continue to do their job. So how do they get paid? They get paid through these delivery charges. RG&E is our utility, our delivery utility, okay? And there's lots of different charges on here. There's the customer charge for being an RG&E customer. There's always followed by delivery charge. And you'll see that's how many kilowatts you use that month times the rate that RG&E is allowed to charge you for their services, then taxes and fees and so forth. And that'll be the total that you pay to RG&E for RG&E's role in providing you with electricity. None of that changes with community choice aggregation. So what does change? The electricity supply portion changes. So in this bill that we're looking at, RG&E is the purchaser of the electricity. The very first line is variable supply charge. Again, this kilowatt hours will match that kilowatt hours. The rate, however, will be different. And this rate changes each month because RG&E just passes through that market expense to the consumer. They're not allowed to offer a fixed supply rate. They have to offer the variable supply rate. And in June, it was 6.3 cents per kilowatt hour. There's also a merchant function charge. And so those costs also get added in, and here will be your subtotal for the electricity supply. When you are enrolled in a community choice aggregation program, this information will look different. There will just be one line. It'll be the per kilowatt hours times the fixed supply rate of $0.058 per kilowatt hour, and the price. Our CCA rate is an all-in rate. It includes the wholesale cost and the merchant function charges, all in one price. So you just see one line item. So if you're trying to compare, just keep that in mind. Okay, if you're looking at your standard RG&E bill, you actually need to accommodate these extra charges into the overall rate in order to compare it to the CCA rate. The other thing that's different is where the supply charges will be located in your RG&E bill. As it's shown here, it's on page 3. In the CCA program, it will be on the last page of your bill, could be page 6. Okay, and again, it will say Constellation New Energy. It will have Constellation's contact information, and then it'll have the one line with the fixed CCA price per kilowatt hour times the number of kilowatts you use that month, and then your total for supply. All right, hope that makes some sense to folks. Now, if you don't want to participate for whatever reason, this is your choice. Nobody has to participate. This is one more option available to our community. And you have different ways to opt out. You can simply sign the card, date it, put it in the pre-stamped, pre-addressed envelope, and send it off in the mail. Or you can call us at the Rochester Community Power Program Hotline, 585-244-0244. Or you can go to the website and submit the information yourself through the web portal, and do have that opt-out card handy, or the pod ID facilitates your process. So what's happening? You have received your opt-out letter. It was mailed out right at the end of June, arriving around 4th of July, holiday weekend. And that opt-out period where if you not sure if you want to join the program, if you just want to be out, if you send that card, we need to receive that card by July 27th, or call us by the 27th, and we will process your request. Or again, use the website. And no fee, no penalty to leave at any time. But if you don't want to be at all entered into the program, this is the month to make your decision. This program is supporting 100% New York State renewably generated electricity. This is primarily from hydro facilities from across New York State, and some small amount of wind. How does that compare to if you were just receiving what RG&E is purchasing? RG&E has recently sent out their disclosure statement that indicated about 54% of their purchases are going to fossil fuel facilities. And again, that's why this CCA program is demonstrating leadership by the city of Rochester in meeting its climate commitments. The program rate on your RG&E bill will begin at the first meter reading that you have after September 1st. Okay, so beginning in September, some people have their meter read on September 1st, some on September, 29th. Whatever date you have your meter read would be the date that you would be entered into the Constellation New Energy as the supplier. And so that October bill, you would see Constellation New Energy if you are enrolled in the CCA program. And that's another point I want to raise to you. So if you've received the letter, great. You would have also received a phone call from RG&E and a letter from RG&E. When you are switched into the community choice aggregation program, that will create another letter from RG&E. So multiple efforts to inform people of their participation. That letter will also be followed by another robocall from RG&E. Again, directing you to contact Rocktricity, our team, at 244-0244 if you need help understanding what's happening or wanting to enter or leave the program. Okay, so thank you for listening and look forward to answering some of your questions. I'm going to ask my colleague, Ben.
Yeah, so we do have a few questions here, Sue, some really good questions coming in. And one question that we thought might be good for you to touch on is, can I choose to be in this CCA and also subscribe to solar?
Oh, fantastic question. Yes, these two programs work together. So we would love for you to participate in your community solar program and join the CCA program.
So another one is, what happens to the rate at the end of the 24-month contract term?
Fabulous question. So before the contract ends, the administrator, whether it's Jewel, will go out and do another competitive bid process. The city of Rochester would again be presented with those bid results, and they would make the best selection of the best price available at that time. And we'd go through this process again with the letters, with the informational meetings, presentations, informing the community of the new product and its prices.
Okay. So another question, how do those that are currently with an ESCO change to this program?
Excellent question. So if you want to switch to this program, the first thing you need to do is end your ESCO contract. That's fairly easily done by informing RG&E. So if you call RG&E, tell them you want to end your ESCO contract, you might want to make sure there's no exit fee or anything associated with that. I don't know the particulars of your ESCO contract, but if you've determined that it's good to leave, you can tell RG&E. They will then send you a letter notifying you that you have been ended your ESCO service and that RG&E will be your supplier. Once you get that letter, give us a call or visit the website and we can enroll you, or you can enroll yourself in Rochester Community Power. But it's definitely important to make sure that transition out of your current product happens first.
Okay, Sue, how about this question? Is there an opt-out website you can go to fill out the request instead of calling someone or mailing a paper in?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go to Rochester Community Power, you can opt out right on the rochestercommunitypower.com website. About halfway down the page, you'll see an enrollment change button. Click that and it'll pull up the opt-out screen, and you put in your pre-enrollment ID number right there.
So also there have been a couple of questions about this topic. So I'll maybe just read one of them and elaborate just a little bit. So one of the questions is, how does that residential rate compare to the current RG&E rates? And another commenter says that RG&E rate varies, but based on the average over a year or more, what will the average increase for average monthly bill be? So you might talk a little bit about that. It seems that might help some of the attendees.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, this is an excellent question, and it sounds like an easy question, and it's actually kind of complicated because, of course, you're trying to compare something that's a fixed price to something that goes up and down, and we don't really know what it's going to be in the future. So we can look at past, but the past doesn't necessarily predict the future. So just to give you an idea, over just the last 3 or 4 months, RG&E rate has varied between 4.3 cents per kilowatt hour and 6.3 cents per kilowatt hour. This program, of course, is fixed at 5.8 cents per kilowatt hour. So, you know, if you looked back over the last year, when we've had a pandemic, and there have been some other factors that have actually caused there to be a relatively low electricity pricing, largely driven by the glut of natural gas from fracking. You know, RG&E's price has been lower. As the economy is recovering and energy demand is increasing again, we are seeing the trend for prices rise. Prices are normalizing. That should make some sense. I, of course, can't tell you what RG&E's rate is going to be next month or the month after that or the month after that. But what I can tell you is that the CCA rate will be fixed at 5.8 cents per kilowatt hour. It's 15% lower than if you had wanted to try to find this product yourself. And it's competitive. It's competitive in the range of RG&E's prices. And it's for a 100% renewable product as opposed to supporting fossil fuels. But if you are someone who just doesn't want to take chances, or you know, thinks that this is on the higher end of RG&E's fluctuating rate, then you might want to think about, well, if it costs me more 1 month, how much more would it cost? And for the average consumption in Rochester, it compared to RG&E's like 4-cent rate, if it was a 1.5 cents higher for this program, then yeah, you're talking about an additional, say, $5 to $10 that month. But it could go the other direction too. There's just no way for me really to be able to predict from month to month whether this would cost someone or save someone money, because RG&E's rate is going to go up and down. I hope that answers that question. Happy to entertain follow-ups to that if people want to hear more.
Great job, Sue. Yeah, there's another question here, and we get this question actually reasonably frequently. It's not always phrased as politely as this, so I quite like it. And it is, how is the "you have to opt out, otherwise you are in by default" legal?
Yeah, that's a great question, because for so many things, this isn't possible, right? And the Public Service Commission, when they designed the rules for community choice aggregation, they put this authority into the hands of local government. So it's not a private business that can do this to you, right? Your local government had to go through a process to adopt a local enabling law. They held public hearings and they posted notice and passed a local law. And that local law gives them the authority to create and explore and implement community choice aggregation programs. However, the only option for community choice aggregation programs is opt out, because that's how the program rules have been set by the Public Service Commission. And if you think about it, if you want to negotiate a bulk purchase price, you need a bulk of purchasers, right? It just simply wouldn't work as an opt-in program. You could not command the market to get a better price in that style of program. And so that's why the program is simply designed in the state, and I think as far as I know in every state, as opt-out treatment. And again, it is just one more option. It's changing your default setting, but it doesn't remove any choice that you ever had. It's just one more choice that's available to you. Hope that helps.
Okay, Sue, we had another question about ESCOs. So if someone has an ESCO currently but is interested in participating in this program?
Okay, thanks, Shannon. Yeah, if you currently have an ESCO, of course, check your contract. Make sure you know if there are any fees to leave. Then if you want to leave, call RGE. Tell them, I'd like to end my ESCO service. RGE will process that request. It often takes a couple of weeks or till when your next meter read date. Then they will send you a letter notifying you that you have terminated your ESCO service and RGE will be your supplier. Once you get that letter, give us a call or visit rochestercommunitypower.com and enroll in Rochester Community Power.
Great. And we had another question. What if a listener didn't receive a letter or an RGE phone call? What does that mean for them?
Yeah, what that means is you, for one of those reasons I listed earlier, you are not currently eligible to participate in this program. So if you have a block on your account, or if you're already with an ESCO service, or if you've been a HEAP participant, or if for some reason you're like the University of Rochester and you use a huge amount of energy, you would not have received this letter. Okay. Some of those things you can change, right? Like you can always remove a block or end your ESCO contract and join Rochester Community Power. Unfortunately, if you've received HEAP this year, you wouldn't be eligible until like the following year or so. I'm not quite sure actually how that works, but HEAP program participants cannot participate as set under the rules of the Public Service Commission.
Okay, Sue, there's another question about the fact that much of the supply is hydro, and what happens if we see extended droughts or the rivers freeze? Where does the backup power come from? So if that hydropower is unavailable for some period of time, and who are we taking the hydro that's now committed from? So we've had this discussion, I think, a number of times too. So.
Yeah, and it's a really thoughtful question. I think especially considering what happened in Texas this past winter, I'm sure it's on people's minds. And so let's just think about what's happening more broadly. We all turn on our lights and so forth, and we get electricity flowing into our houses. So there's electricity flowing on wires from all kinds of different generators. And which electron actually comes into my house, where it started, I have no way of knowing that, right? Odds are very good that it came maybe off the solar panels, say, if I have them on my roof, very good probability if it's sunny, right? Or the closest hydro facility, or in our case in Rochester, could be coming from Gannett, right? From the nuclear power plant. Whatever's nearest you is where you're most likely to actually get those electrons from. But if any facility is down at any particular time, that's actually a very common occurrence. And most of us never know if a power plant has gone offline. And they go offline for lots of reasons, usually for just routine maintenance. You know, I've had a friend who works at a nuclear power plant. Every year or so, they have a 2-week outage and they do all kinds of repairs. You as a consumer would never know that. Okay, so yes, facilities do sometimes stop generating, but in general, that's nothing to be alarmed about. Okay, because we have electrons flowing all the time from a variety of sources. When we experience outages, it's typically because some other part of the infrastructure, like the lines, have come down. Okay. Second piece of that was related to the demand for the hydropower. So we also tend to think of, oh, there's this generator of electricity and they're putting electrons on the grid. That's the whole story. They're just charging a price and that's the end of it. It's actually more complicated than that. In New York State, since the 90s, we've had what's called a deregulated market. So our utilities are, by and large, not allowed to own generation. The generation is privately owned, the utilities are privately owned, and the state thought it would be preferable for these to be a competitive generation market. Okay, so all these generators selling electrons into the wholesale electric market. But if you want to encourage renewable generators, how would you do that? And what New York State did was it created a market for certificates that, if you will, verify the authenticity of the renewable generation. So if I own a hydropower facility, I'm selling electrons, but I also sell green energy certificates. And those certificates are tracked because you want to make sure that you only have as many equal to what's actually being generated. And New York State has a generation attribute tracking system that those products are traded and kept track of, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. And so then when you're creating programs like Rochester Community Power and you're saying, hey, community, here's this product for you at 5.8 cents per kilowatt hour, that actually represents both this wholesale market price and this green attribute, what we call REC price. And that's what makes the supply price that we pay as consumers, those things combined together. So there's a lot of detail, I think, for most folks, but hopefully the person asking this question, like, that makes some sense to you. So there's only so many RECs. And you're right, if we buy them in Rochester, it means someone else isn't buying them. But that's how markets also work, right? If you want to encourage a product's existence, you increase the demand for that product. So Rochester's demanding it. Hopefully that will lead the market to respond, and more renewably generated electrons will come on the grid because those producers are going to want to be able to sell the electrons and the green energy certificates. So not an instant change. It's not like this program changes the mix of supply in New York State tomorrow. It's kind of like a tool. It is one tool to help meet New York State and the city of Rochester's climate commitments. But in it of itself isn't enough. The state and the city will do other things. This is one tool that can be used. And I'm excited that the city of Rochester is committed to making good on their climate promises. please send me follow-up questions to that very lengthy response if you have them.
So, Sue, yeah, there's another one. Will there be a link of this recording that we can share with others to be informed if they missed the session?
There will be. Thank you for that question. Yep. At the end of this presentation, so probably tomorrow at some point, this will get loaded into the Rochester YouTube channel. And there's a whole bunch of exciting presentations there if you want. This will be one of them. It's also on Facebook, on the Rochester Community Power Facebook page, and people can view it there as well.
So, hey, there's another really good question. What do you say to people who have had previously very bad experience with this type of program and just want nothing to do with it at all? And we know that some customers have had bad experience with third-party suppliers, so it might be good to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I completely understand, and I think everyone at Rochester and Jewel completely understands that many of us have experienced, had a negative experience with an ESCO. I know I have, where they give you a teaser rate, next thing you know, you're paying 2 to 3 times that. And it's awful. And it's one reason why I personally, and I think our team is so pleased to be offering a community choice aggregation product, because this isn't a teaser price. This is actually a fixed rate for electric supply for the next 24 months. And it's been reviewed by municipal attorneys. It's been reviewed by Jewel's attorney. And it's not a teaser rate. So I think personally it's really exciting. I certainly understand people's hesitancy. I'm a community choice aggregation program participant, and I'm really glad to know that for 2 years, I have a fixed rate for electricity. Other things?
Let's see. So there's a follow-up there that says the previous bad experience was the delivery charges doubled. We had an earlier question about the impact of the program on delivery charges, so it might be good to maybe expand on that a little.
Yeah, so I guess I can't say historically if that is related to any ESCO servicing or not. I know currently that your delivery charges are highly regulated by a completely separate process by the Public Service Commission. And that process is called a rate case. And a rate case occurs every 3 years. RG&E just finished one rate case this a few months ago. And in fact, if you look at, I think it's your June bill, but it could be your May bill, I'm not positive. You'll see a change in the customer charge. It goes from 21.36 cents to 21.70 cents. And that's the result of a rate case. So RG&E cannot change the charges associated with delivery as a result of whomever you choose to get your supply from. Okay, so if that was different 30 years ago, I don't know. I can tell you today that that is true, and that's been true for some time. The delivery charges pay RG&E. They're highly regulated, and they can only change those charges with permission from the Public Service Commission every 3 years. I feel like I was going to say something else related to that. In conversation with RG&E, RG&E explicitly said that they are agnostic, if you will, to where electricity supply comes from. They don't make any profit off of it. It's a pass-through charge. They are partnering with us in the rollout of Rochester Community Power. They've given us some informational presentations. They've made modifications to letters to include our customer service number. They've created those robocalls, all in an attempt to help provide transparency and clarity and communicate information to the customers. And you should not see any change to your delivery charges as a result of participation in this or any other ESCO product.
So there are a couple other questions coming in slowly, but there's also a comment or two here that I'd like to share. One says, I'm excited that Rochester is being proactive about this. So that's good feedback. And really excited for this CCA as well. I hope the profile can diversify to be wind and solar majority, but a step in the right direction. So I think there's some real support for this move toward renewable energy.
Well, great. Glad to hear it.
So another question, RG&E is part of Avangrid. Couldn't they combine their purchasing power to get a lower rate for their customers? So this gets at the way in which the utilities purchase supply.
Yeah, that's really a great question. I don't know, Ben, if you want to tackle it at all.
Yeah. Well, so they don't, as to explain, they don't make any profit on the supply, and therefore they don't particularly care. But they shop for the supply where they're providing supply. They shop for the supply as is directed by the Public Service Commission, and they shop, I believe, on the day-ahead market. So they don't really have. While they could combine their purchasing supply, I suppose they have no incentive to do that.
Well, yeah, and they're constantly having to purchase energy to meet changing demand, right? So they're just precluded. They don't have the ability to like create the same types of products as a CCA program or an ESCO. The regulations are just simply different. It's a pass-through cost.
Yeah, and there's a note that has come in response to that, and this is true. RGE is not allowed to provide an offering designed to compete with the ESCOs. Again, more of the regulatory framework that's there.
Interesting.
Here's a good question. Is this just for electricity or gas as well? That's an interesting.
Very interesting question. Thank you for that. This program, as it stands right now, is just for electricity. I know the city of Rochester hopes to use this as a tool for other programmatic offerings down the road. But the first one, hopefully being community solar offerings. And so, watch for that, and we'll continue to share out as program offerings increase.
Let's see, just a few more questions. I'm not quite sure I'm on this one, but you'll maybe get this too. With about 60,000 affected, is there a geographic concentration or clustering identified in Rochester?
Yeah, that's a great question that I actually can't answer because I don't have access to the data. So what happens in a CCA program is that the program administrator has to ask RG&E for that data, and that data is transferred to the energy company and the administrator. I don't have access to it, so I have no way to tell you of those 60,000 program participants or potential program participants where exactly they are located in the city of Rochester.
So there's another a comment. It says not a question, but I think we might be able to address this a little bit anyway. We should be extremely careful when talking about impact of $5 to $10 a month on family budgets. And I think this, gets very much to the point of the ability for people to opt out.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, we should be. That is not an insignificant amount of money to a lot of people. And that's why we want people to be well informed of the price. This is not a guaranteed savings program. It just simply isn't a guaranteed increased price program either. So people should, look at their bills and look at the supply portion of their bill and see, how much of their utility bill that tends to be. It's usually the one of the smaller sections of your bill. But yeah, if you think $5 to $10 might result as a result of participating in this program, then you might want to opt out. And that I leave to consumers to decide what's best for themselves.
So here's another really good question that may help to allay some people's confusion about other programs in the area. It says, I know a CCA has been formed with Irondequoit, Brighton, and Pittsford, managed by Jewel. Is Constellation New Energy providing their electricity? Will Rochester combine with these towns for better pricing? And I think Penfield is also looking into a CCA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so great. Kudos to that person for knowing what's happening around us. So there is a Monroe Community Power Program. In the Monroe Community Power Program, Brighton is the only community with an active CCA supply contract, and that is with Source Power. That contract was made during the pandemic. I don't know, maybe 6-8 months ago now. And the participants began being enrolled in January into that program. Irondequoit and Pittsford have not yet chosen to move forward with a CCA supply program. And you are correct, Penfield is exploring it, and they have selected a different administrator. So we'll see what they decide to do and how their bidding process results when they're ready to do it. So Constellation New Energy is the supplier for the Rochester Community Power Program, the supplier for the Village of Brockport and the Village of Lima, and a number of communities in the Hudson Valley. Hope that answers that question.
So we've got 3 minutes left for our ASL interpreter.
Thank you. Okay, just so folks know. Any other questions?
No, I think we're at the end. There was a question about putting links to the Rochester Community Power Facebook page and the website into here somewhere. So Shannon's working on doing that, and we'll try our very best to get that information out. If we don't get it here into the chat somehow before we end, just know you can visit rochestercommunitypower.com.
I've added them to the Q&A section, so they should be there.
Great. Thank you, Shannon, for taking care of that. And let me thank our interpreter. We really appreciate you. Thank you for being here.
And thank you, Sue. Great job.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, my electricity colleagues. I'm so glad so many community members could join us this evening. There will be another Zoom presentation tomorrow at noon. So if you have friends or family who are interested in attending, please remind them that it's at noon tomorrow. No ASL though, sorry. Oh, and if you know anyone who speaks Spanish, there is a Spanish version of the presentation on the Rocktricity YouTube channel. Okay, everyone, have a good night.